show, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm here with Megan Strand.
Hey there.
And Dane Christensen.
Hello.
And this is The Naked Marketers. And you can find us if you're listening to us on thenakedmarketers.com. Make sure to head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show in the iTunes store for free, just to make sure you don't miss a single episode. That's the best way to keep up with us. What do we have to talk about today, you guys? Seems like it's been forever since we have had a show.
It has been forever. It's been very sad. I've missed you both desperately.
Desperately, likewise. Mostly, I have absolutely missed your rapier wit, your charming personality, and your interesting bone structure. It's been a long time. The summer schedule is a little bit funky for us, so we kind of keep plodding along here. But we've got more great interviews coming up. A great show today. Dane hooked us up with the wonderfully talented and informative Douglas Pollei. Dane, what do we know about Doug?
Well, he'll have to do a little bit of giving an introduction into what it is he does, because it's a little technical. But he spends a lot of time helping customers adopt Google's cloud computing technologies, and very aware of a lot of the innovations and the evolutions, both of cloud computing, social media, and other ways that technology is really affecting and sometimes disrupting companies and corporate culture.
Well, we're very interested to get Doug's interview on the show here today. He's a fascinating guy. But first, what do we have on the brain? Megan?
Well, we got to start with the iPhone, because we have to always start with the iPhone.
This is the Apple Update show. Let's talk about the iPhone. So what do you know? What do you know about what happened, what's been going on this week? Are you up to speed?
I don't know that I'm up to speed, except for the fact that, no, I'm not up to speed. I'm not even going to pretend that I am. All I know is that there's this built-in antenna that's supposed to be so fabulous is causing some issues, and Apple has been forced to come forward and actually talk about it.
We don't actually know if they're going to talk about it. The press conference has not yet happened, but they have scheduled a press conference for Friday. That if you're not up to speed on what's going on with iPhone 4, there is a fantastic and much touted new antenna design, which puts the antenna in the stainless steel bezel around the phone, the frame of the phone. And there is a place on the phone in the lower left-hand corner of that bezel where two different antennas come together with a black seam, and if you hold it just the way a lefty with sweaty palms would hold their phone if they had giant ape-like hands, you will cover that space on the phone, and you will cause the signal to degrade. And that it has gotten so confusing. Mostly, I think Apple did this to themselves when specifically Steve Jobs responded to an email complaint from a user expressing concern about this issue when he said, "Don't hold the phone that way."
Oh,
well, I think that started it all. So this is first and foremost a PR issue, and it's more a PR issue even than a technical issue, because what many have since discovered is that the Nexus 1, the BlackBerry, the iPhone 3G, if you find where that antenna is on that phone and you hold it in a certain way, you can also cause the signal to degrade visibly on those phones as well. This is an issue that's endemic of antennas in cell phones, not specifically of the iPhone 4. The iPhone 4 has become a giant target because of how Apple has handled this, which is, in a word, poorly, in my opinion. Now, that said, the last nail, or I should say the most recent nail in the iPhone 4 antenna gate is Consumer Reports, which originally had come out on the blog post saying, this antenna thing, it happens everywhere, it's not a big deal. And then they said, we're going to get it into our formal testing center shortly, and we'll give a complete report. But in our initial review, it's not a big deal. It should not prevent you from buying this phone. Then they took it into their labs, and they did what amounts to a mildly more sophisticated test than some of the more sophisticated bloggers that have been writing about this issue. And they say that, in fact, if you have the iPhone and you cover it in a certain way and you are in a certain place of low signal in your community, there is a chance that you could drop calls. And that makes this a more significant issue. And the result is they say they can no longer recommend the iPhone 4. Oh, by the way, it's also the single best smartphone we have ever tested. All in the same breath.
And like you're saying, Pete, I mean, from what I've heard, it is a very limited either instance of it ever happening or the kinds of people, as you kind of described, a prototypical bad iPhone 4 user. That's a really small percentage of the overall user experience or users who use it, but because it's such a big product and has sold so many and will send so many, that's a signign't number in population terms, just
right.
not percentage terms.
Right. Well,
so
and that's it. And you know, I make fun of the big-handed lefties, but the truth is, you know, if I'm looking at my phone right now, I'm in an area of good signal, and if I put my hand over that section of the phone, I can watch the signal degrade. And I've done this a lot because I'm really hypersensitive about these sort of form and function things, and want to make sure that if it's, you know, I'm just anal about that stuff. So I put the phone on the desk and I make a phone call on speakerphone, and then I'm connected and I put my finger over the phone, over the antenna area, and I watch the cell bars degrade. I have never dropped a call in this little experience, and I've done this dozens of times trying to duplicate the dropped call issue. And I've never dropped a call. To my knowledge, even those people who are experiencing this problem, the people that I know who have these phones, very limited, you know, survey sample size, have also never dropped a call. They can absolutely duplicate the issue, but it never gets to the point where service goes away. And so I don't know if maybe, you know, Apple says it's a software issue, that they're going to be releasing a software update that will change the size of the bars and the way the signal to bar ratio is calculated on the phone. So it'll be more obvious when you're in a low signal area. But in the meantime, it's making them look really, really bad. So.
And we'll have to wait and see what happens at this press conference, but I have a hard time believing they're doing an entire formal press conference for a new, iOS upgrade.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a feeling. I know, you know, there have been people saying, you know, free bumper cases, because that's really it. And Consumer Reports said if you're having this problem and you don't want to buy a case, put a little piece of duct tape over that area of the antenna and it'll mitigate the issue. You put one of the bumper cases on, any case on it, which just keeps your fingers away from that part of the phone, and it makes the problem go away. Sometimes I use a case, sometimes I don't. This is still the best, the single best, certainly the best iPhone I have used, but it is absolutely the best cell phone I've used, you know, bar none, even given this issue. Again, for me, I haven't seen it.
So maybe the press conference is they are going to be offering a free roll of duct tape to all iPhones.
Exactly. That would really be icing on the cake. Yeah. Don't hold it that way, and here's your duct tape. That's awesome.
Suckers.
The stock might take a hit, but it would be funny.
That's right. The
Moving on.
Next news, boy, can we talk about Old Spice anymore?
We have not talked that much about Old Spice.
We haven't talked about Old Spice enough.
Okay, so do your impression of the Old Spice guy, Peter, just because you do a really good job.
I don't. I can't do it anymore. They did 84 of these YouTube spots.
No, but just do his voice. It's awesome when you do it.
See. I love you, always. Silverfish hand catch. No? Was that even close? I wasn't ready for it. I need to get a mirror and take my shirt off.
Okay, so for people who have been living under a rock for the past, I don't know how long, a while, you may have missed the Old Spice Man commercials, which are just phenomenal. And Peter has been a raving fan. Wyden and Kennedy has put these together. And it recently just got upped a notch of awesomeness when the Old Spice guy, what did he do? He essentially took a bunch of Twitter comments and did custom YouTube videos in response to them. And they are awesome. I mean, he proposed on behalf of one Twitter follower to his girlfriend.
It's brilliant. It
was awesome. I mean, it was amazing. And just how did he crank those out? I mean, they
did it all in one day.
I know, that's amazing.
It is amazing, and I it's a much lower rent kind of a shoot than the original ad. You can tell they went back to the bathroom, but they didn't do any of the fancy set changes. These were really just sort of personal responses that were, I think hats off to the team at Wieden and Kennedy more than anything else. I think it is a stunning achievement of professionalism to be able to crank out the sheer number of videos with the quality of clever writing that they were able to do in that single day, and it is a fantastically funny and compelling campaign, mostly because it's still focused on the product. Even in these short little clips of great humor, they still were able to bring the focus into on Old Spice that was not ham-handed or heavy-handed, or if it was ham-handed, it was in a way that made you love them even more. Really, you must check those out.
What a brilliant and unexpected thing from the very onset that Old Spice would ever have gone with Wieden and Kennedy ever, and that Wieden and Kennedy would convince Old Spice to do not just this viral campaign, but all of the just funky spots that they've done over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, that comes out of nowhere for me, and I think it's just brilliant. I think it's worked so well for them, and according to Mashable, I think today or yesterday, they're putting Wieden and Kennedy and this particular viral campaign out there as the current standard bearer and bar on all viral campaigns.
Yeah,
absolutely, and I think wisely so. Wieden and Kennedy is on an incredible roll. Responsible for the Nike World Cup ad, which was in a completely other vein, absolutely stunning and a brilliant piece of film. Definitely worth watching. So it's a great update to Old Spice. If you're into a little humor, make sure you head over to the YouTube Old Spice channel and watch all of those ads, all 84 of them, but in particular, the one that he does to his daughter.
That was cute.
Oh,
that was cute.
It's a choker. It's awesome, and they're all fantastic. So what else do we need to talk about? Somebody else has something to say, right? Let's talk Chatroulette.
Oh, there you go. It's Megan's favorite.
Well,
Megan is on that all the time.
There's
She's
a
like
spin on the lineup.
addict.
That's right. I'm shaking it up, and mostly because I want to watch you spin a little bit why you picked this story.
I just thought it was interesting that something
why?
as randomized as Chatroulette has now seemed to have some order placed to it. I mean, granted, it's smutty order.
What is that? What has that done to your personal experience with Chatroulette?
I don't have a lot of personal experience with Chatroulette outside of that Ben Folds video. So,
interesting.
No, I think it's interesting that they're now adding channels and localization services, so you can now do Chatroulette with somebody in Portland, for example,
who maybe shares your specific interests.
If I want to look at the MILF channel, I can look at that. So.
Yeah, just read off some of the channels. I'm curious.
Okay, let's do it, Dane.
I'm not in front of a computer right now, so
this
help
is
me
looking
out,
bad for me. This is looking bad for me.
The number one channel that Megan has asked us to talk about is the sex channel on Chatroulette. But if that's not enough, it's gay teen, girls, MILFs, couples, bisex, gay, local cybersex, and young Asian girls.
You skipped D and fur.
Well, I think that's Germany and France and Great Britain. I skipped the country localization. I don't mean to make all Germans look bad for using Chatroulette.
Okay, how about crazy?
okay, that was crazy.
That's a rated G channel.
The last one. I doubt it.
I don't personally find Chatroulette compelling. I just thought it was interesting that to me, it's probably a random experiment that somebody thought, some drunk guys got together, of course it was guys, and said, let's try this. And now, it's actually, they're putting some structure around it. I just think that's it. Moving on to the next story.
Amusing. Thanks for bringing that up to our...
Such a way.
I just am glad that you...
edit me out, Peter.
No. I would never edit that out. I'm just glad that you thought to bring that to all of our attention.
Thanks, Megan.
It's like a public service. This is a cause marketing play.
Wow. Okay, moving on.
Moving on, Dane, what's going on with iAds?
iAds has some early success that's kind of interesting. And again, so my internet went down. That's why I'm on a cell phone here. But I was reading, I don't have these names in front of me now, but there's an app developer who put out an application, I think last week, that allows you to use the LED light to the camera as a flashlight. He did two versions. He did a paid version and an iAds supported version. And in one day, he made $1,400 on the free iAds version. There were not many paid ones sold. People were okay, I guess, seeing the iAds. But he had a cost per 1,000 up in about the $150 range, which is a very healthy rate. So we'll see. I mean, this is an example he went out there with. He wanted to sort of share. He's just as far as I know, a one-shop developer, but he wanted to share his experience or his success with the iAds version. And I haven't, we'll have to follow this and see. But it's interesting. It's interesting to watch new, not just new marketing avenues and new medium, new ways to reach consumers, but new revenue models actually for products. It's interesting. It's interesting when free makes money.
It's always interesting when free makes money. I think it'll be interesting to see how this platform normalizes its growth. I wonder if the app in question is by a developer, Jason Ting, and he has two apps: the LED light for iPhone 4 and the LED light for iPhone 4 free. And the free one obviously is ad subsidized with iAds. Let's see, he says he got a total of revenue on that one day of $1,372, average cost per thousand, $147.55 on 26,000 requests, 9,300 actual impressions, fill rate of 34%, click-through rate 11.8%. So 11.8% of the people are clicking through and taking a look at those ads.
That's a high click-through rate.
That's a pretty extraordinary click-through rate, and I would imagine that a lot of that is based on, well, I think it's an open question. Is it based on the purported high quality of the iAds interface and experience itself?
Right.
Or
that to me is the most interesting question.
It is, or is it based on the early interest in iAds as a platform? People are downloading these first apps just to see the ads and experience them. Are the ads going to be able to maintain that level of interest over time? Steve Jobs, when he was making the pitch to developers, was absolutely, we're going to manage the quality of this. We will be the arbiters of genius here, and so these ads will be up to that level of quality. So we'll see if they can sustain.
Well, and you're right, Pete. Time will tell. Who knows if there was something funky, some variable that isn't sustainable or whatever. But I'd certainly personally like to believe that they've actually come up with a more appealing so from both sides. I mean, as a consumer, a more appealing, I guess, more welcome way to interface with advertising or to accept ads or see ads. And from a marketer standpoint, a more effective way of delivering them. And,
right.
and we've talked a little bit before about, for years and years, conversations about mobile is the next great ad platform, and there's so few examples of good and or effective mobile advertising. We're in that era now where I think we really are starting to see some very serious traction there.
Yeah, I think there's this level of acceptance in what people are willing to take into their daily experience, and I think they're starting to ignore the fact that it's not novel anymore, and it's just a part of daily life. And there's another piece of it, which is, you want to support the developers that are doing good work. And I am more than willing to click on an ad on a great website to support a developer that's giving me great content. And I think the same exists for apps.
Right.
In this ecology. So really interesting to see how that turns out. So I'm sure we'll keep talking about it. There's lots of other news to talk about, but none of it is, really interesting me right this second. I'm like looking at our rundown and look at all this stuff. You know what? Social networking users actually do worry about privacy. The Marist Institute for Public Opinion says that all the great big social networks that say people aren't really as concerned about privacy as the pundits say they are. Well, the Marist Institute says Yeah, actually they are. A full 50% of their respondents, 1,000 respondents, 50% of them said they're either concerned or very concerned about privacy. The other 50% are not very concerned or not concerned at all. That shows that a significant portion of this population is actually thinking about privacy, which I think is a good thing. And at least is aware as a result of likely the privacy issues that Facebook and others have faced over the last several months. I don't know that I don't know that it'll affect change necessarily. It'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these great big new social networks coming out. But the survey, I think, is an interesting data point. Are you guys still? You guys are still pretty heavy users, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say heavy, but I would say, Pete, that I think the sweet spot here is somewhere between where companies like Facebook are trying to push us into not caring about our privacy, I think, a little bit, or at least that the technology influences, and where people really do have a breaking point, because I think people's perception on privacy is different than it was 5 and then 10 years ago, and maybe even a year ago. But there's a point there that there's a sweet spot that we haven't hit yet, and it will ultimately either change Facebook, continue to change people's perception of privacy, or create ground for somebody to compete against them effectively in probably a short period of time if that sweet spot isn't sort of arrived at at some point in the near future, I think.
Well, I think that's a really good point, and it needs to happen pretty quickly, only because there's such a vacuum right now in competitors to Facebook. I mean, nobody has really stepped up, and I think there's a huge opportunity to address the shortcomings of Facebook before Facebook does. And we need competition in this space. We desperately need competition in this space before Facebook becomes the de facto kind of sharing platform on the internet. Megan, anything? do you care?
No, it's not that I don't care. I was thinking about our other news stories and thinking that.
You thinking about Chatroulette?
I'm not.
You on Chatroulette right now?
Oh God, I'm busted.
You know what? The only other two news stories I had, I wanted to just share, more than anything else, the subway campaigns. Did you guys get a good look at these?
Awesome. And I wish we had a subway in Portland, which we don't. But B, I just wish they would do more stuff like this around here. It's just kind of cool.
They're very funny, and we'll post them on the blog. There are lots of great pictures of really innovative subway campaigns where you see advertisers who are taking great effort to tailor their campaigns to the location. IKEA is putting real furniture in the subway stations and in subway cars.
Yeah.
There's a gym in Germany is actually replacing all the handrails with barbells and weights. The funeral services, the funeral home is just a standard billboard on the opposite side of the tracks saying, "Step a little closer" in fine print. So you actually have to walk closer to see it and take your life into your own hands just to see the ad. It's morbid and brilliant.
Maybe that's why they're not in the United States.
Yeah, right.
We're a little more litigious.
Exactly. So it's a great thing to look at.
I think where the Max goes by the zoo is the closest thing Portland does have to a subway. You guys should get some clients and do some
just go hang out by the zoo.
Max retrofitting.
Well, that's the tunnel, right?
That's the tunnel.
That's
the tunnel.
An underground stop.
That's our tunnel
location.
We got about 5 minutes.
There you go.
5 minutes.
Like a subway for one stop.
Yeah, I was going to say, not even.
Get creative.
Well, that's the trick is figuring out how to be creative. There was another interesting little write-up on consumer-generated media campaigns, and I don't even know how much this adds to the discussion. I think it really highlights the challenge in consumer-generated media, and it's something we should really talk to Doug about, which is this idea of how you engage your users to get involved in your brand. And it's something that we've talked about before. This write-up over at Influential Marketing, Rohit does a great job of highlighting some of these campaigns of engaging the audience to create video and take pictures and come up with songs and things like that. Is that really the most clever use of your audience's intellectual capacitance.
Well, see, this is where I think I'm going to get on my cause marketing bandwagon now. This is where I think cause marketing is far superior to some of this fluff that's out there about, submit a YouTube video about Mountain Dew or create a new Folgers jingle. Really? I just think that if you're asking consumers to engage in something that they care about and that you care about and is important to your brand, why not pick a cause? That's my stance on it, because that's where you see cause marketing. I mean, they have an example of the Pepsi Refresh campaign, which is, that's the one that gets touted around everywhere. But there's so much. There's a lot of really neat stuff happening out there. Kind granola. I don't know that they're really granola bars, but they're sort of energy bars. Has a neat campaign out that was just written up in the New York Times, where they're essentially, the brand is Kind, and they're essentially asking you to do a kind of a pay it forward activity for which, you get points, or I don't know exactly what you get, but it's kind of a neat little online interface where they're encouraging you to pay it forward and do something kind for someone else. And it's kind of a neat play on the brand, and, you kind of feel good about it versus like, I'm going to go make a Mountain Dew video. Right. So
yeah,
so there's my soapbox for cause marketing.
It's a great soapbox. I mean, it's the idea of as long as there's good to be done, there's a way to do it and support the brand too,
and engage your consumers, right, in something that's somewhat meaningful versus froofy. So,
well,
we can post that as well.
We will definitely post that, and I think that's good, and I think now it is time to actually bring the smarts. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yay.
Okay, well, we are really excited today to have a guest who brings a lot of experience and a lot of enthusiasm about technology and communications and a lot of things that are going on in the world around us, the business world around us. Doug Pollei, who's the Vice President of Internet Strategies and Corporate Development at IKANO. Doug, do you want to tell the audience just a little bit about you?
Sure. So I've been with IKANO for a while now. We're a portfolio company, like Dana had mentioned, for Insight Venture Partners in New York City. And my job is to lead up the strategic partnerships with the company, also help advise on multi-channel digital strategy, including mobile, social, cloud-based services. And currently my role is leading up the strategic relationship with Google and also with Equinix, VMware, and some of the other partners that we have in our ecosystem.
That's just fascinating. I mean, so I think we've heard of Google. I think that, Doug, I follow you on Twitter and some other social platforms, and I'm always just amazed and blown away at the conferences you're attending, or the news items you're out in front of, or the people that you're interacting with, and you truly are somebody that is just simply on the forefront, not only of your networking and from a business perspective, the things that you're involved in and helping to see through, but in terms of the way you see technology and the way it's sort of affecting society or affecting corporate cultures. And I think every time I get a little tidbit from you or we talk in person, there's just something that I think you're seeing that's going on or about to happen. And I've always been fascinated by that about you. What do you see happening right now? I mean, what are some of the things that you're involved in that would be interesting?
Yeah, so just to kind of start, I think the big story is not really all the technology that we're hearing about on a daily basis. So you could go to Tech Meme and soak that in, but really the big stories on a day-to-day basis is how that technology transforms individuals and organizations. Technology itself is useless without the individuals that can implement them. And right now we're at an interesting time where cloud computing is in some ways kind of the new social media. I mean, we're talking about 3 or 4 years ago where social media was very, very much on the forefront of people's minds. We were being over-flooded with it in the media, and now it's kind of the standard ops within most general Fortune 500s and small to medium-sized enterprises. So right now, cloud computing is taking on that kind of disruptive role where organizations are having to rethink their current technology set and say, should we be hosting most of our communication services and other services in-house within our own data centers, or should we be outsourcing those to companies like Google and others who do it better on a larger scale? So Google, just take for example, has data centers throughout the world, and these servers are distributed throughout the world, throughout these data centers. And with their massive scale, the largest computer network in the world, I think they can do it a bit better than most organizations. So now that this is happening, it also produces trust situations where can people trust their data? Can they move it outside their firewall? Can they feel comfortable where it's at? And that causes disruption. So we're seeing those kind of things happening today. Our company is seeing Google migrations happening worldwide. So not just for companies here in the United States, but also for companies outside that area. So with Google having such a large presence, I don't want to just focus on Google specifically, but what I'm saying is it's helping those organizations transform. And when they toe dip into outsourcing to a cloud environment, a simple thing like email, that can lead to other services that can outsource to the cloud, and leads to maybe to the next largest step, which is most companies may not have data centers anymore where they have servers in-house, and that'll all be outsourced to specific partners that are out there in an ecosystem. So, yeah.
I think I think you're bringing up some some really interesting kind of technological, kind of evolutionary pieces, and I'm interested in, we know that organizations are making the move, to Google, but to Microsoft, SharePoint, whatever. There are all these big technology companies are trying to be involved in the cloud. One of the things that we were talking about before the show is this idea of cloud communities. And it starts to reek of a marketing term. Can you define what a cloud community is in the context of all this transformation, this transformative effect, and how we're seeing the cloud bring people together?
Right. Well, cloud community can be defined in many ways. Let me just take it from an example. You have Facebook, which is a large cloud community. We're seeing a large migration from other social services over to Facebook, and that community and that wave of information, that stream that's coming down from people that you friend, creates a information wave on a daily basis of what's trending, where it's happening, and we're seeing that in cloud communities like Twitter and others. So headline news is not driven from large organizations in mainstream media, but they're looking to the stream, and that stream comes from communities themselves that are dictating what's happening and what's trending. So even last evening, for example, if you were following Twitter, the ESPY Awards on ESPN were high topics, and those are the things that are peaking. So those are the things people are looking to, is how is the internet shaping our lives, how it's transforming organizations, how it feeds us on a daily basis. And cloud communities can happen on a macro scale like the ones I just mentioned, but also on a micro scale. And I'm seeing smaller communities, say, for example, healthcare organizations that are using cloud communities to drive information around their organization, specifically like a mobile solution. So we're going to see a lot more happening and everything migrating over to the mobile side, where clouds are going to start developing and people will use mobile technologies to access those clouds. So today's environment is you're not connecting to your desktop anymore to connect to software. You're connecting to software that's hosted in a data center. So really, the future technologies of appliances or applications or services that you buy will all be attached to these data centers going forward. And so cloud communities are really the underlying driver to these types of technologies. So I see a lot of future with the sub cloud communities in specific industries, like I've mentioned in healthcare, but everyone's going to be developing these, and then the cloud itself will be driven out of the large data center. So Very exciting times.
Very exciting. I wonder, and this is sort of the struggle that we talk about often, and I feel like I haven't seen a really sophisticated answer to this question yet from a technology side. But when you have organizations that are dealing with large, bodies of customers, what is a strategy that they can apply to engage those customers using these cloud initiatives? And their choices are, you got Facebook, where you can go start a fan page on Facebook and start giving away product for free to get people to fan up and run your ads. You've got, we saw Mark Andreessen's Ning.com I thought was a fantastic, early solution to allowing brands to create their own kind of cloud communities that seems to be really struggling. Who are you seeing in this space that is really providing a platform for organizations to utilize to build these social networks for their own specific constituencies?
Well, and to build their brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd mentioned a couple that are pretty good. Ning's story is interesting, how they had to move from the freemium model to more of a premium model and move people off of that because of scale and such. But I think, for example, we'll take the Old Spice ads that are trending high right today and yesterday. Seems to get a lot of hype, and they're moving most of their advertising and their commercials into the Facebook model and also on YouTube. I think YouTube shows how that cloud community is really driving a lot of conversation for brands and allowing other mediums like Twitter so that they can respond directly to consumers as if they were the individual in the Old Spice ad. So
I'm really glad you brought up YouTube. I think a lot of brands mistake YouTube as a channel and forget that it is a massive community.
Yes, it's
unto itself.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part going forward is how do you draw these cloud communities together? Meaning, if you're a marketer, like some of the people that probably listen to this show, and you're saying, how do I...
I think maybe. There's a big maybe there.
Yeah, but how do you draw it all together? And I think what we're seeing right now is there are companies that are coming out with capabilities for cloud management so that you can manage an organization across multiple cloud systems and allow for logins essentially in a secure environment to these cloud systems. And so that means if you hired a marketer and you say, okay, now I need you to go in and manage all this, how do you do it and then make sure that they have the right access and information across the cloud platforms? And cloud management solutions are now coming. And I think that's going to be very interesting to help organizations make sense out of the stream that's coming at them on a daily basis and make sense of it all. So some of the challenges that I'm seeing here for organization is cloud management, and then the plethora of information and how to make sense of it all. And I think that's the next wave of information management is how do we grapple this stuff and then rise from the bottom to the top, the thing that's most relevant to you, your organization, or your customers. And in Silicon Valley, there's just a lot of talk of startups that are doing this today.
Is it, when you say cloud management solutions, I mean, would you put Hootsuite in that category, or are you thinking of some other things that we're not familiar with, perhaps?
These are products that are, I can't mention some of the companies that are working on these, but these are products that essentially allow for an individual inside an organization to go to a specific area on their screen and then launch into all the cloud services they've subscribed or have services on to make it feel like one continuous operating system. So that's the cloud operating system, which everyone's talking about, is coming here soon.
Which is sorely missing. I mean, this idea of getting Google and all the various services Google offers and resharing options and Facebook and sharing options, and to get all of those systems to talk to one another in a way that is both open and illustrative of what's going on with your brand, but and really able to filter the noise out of what can be a really ugly mess of data. I think is really missing in this space, and I think is probably a large hindrance in companies being able to adopt and not see this as a waste of time.
Yeah, data overload is one of the biggest issues right now with a lot of companies and individuals. They can't make sense of it all, and now with so many new things coming down, now with geolocation services and crowdsourcing services and augmented reality. I mean, we're layering even more technologies on top of people's already complex day to make sense of all these cloud systems. So really the data overload services that are coming out and helping try to fix this and, like you say, bring things to the top, that's where I think many companies will benefit from in the future, because right now they're having a hard time.
Kind of like BP capping the well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, Dane. I think we're also thinking about it in this conversation from a marketing perspective, but I think what Doug is saying is that cloud management and cloud computing sort of pervades the entire organization. So I guess I'm curious to know, Doug, in an ideal world and in what you're seeing with some of these companies developing these cloud management tools, who in an organization is tasked with cloud management? Because, it seems to me that there's implications for employee communications, as you were talking about earlier, with mobile devices and marketing and social media. I mean, who in an ideal world has that even been fleshed out yet?
I don't think so. I think you're always going to see a tug of war between IT and trying to wrangle control over the organization to keep security pieces and where the communities can traverse it essentially inside the organization, and how it affects who they can talk to outside the organization, what kind of information they're sharing. So I think IT will always be grappling with how open and transparent they can allow the marketers essentially or the brand managers to be. So that's why I always feel like there's got to be an internal group or I guess you could say a kind of a committee that comes together, and this committee could be essentially from the IT organization, from senior management, the executive suite, from marketing, from brand management, and those kind of people would come together and say, how do we manage the cloud to give us enough openness and transparency, but also give IT the comfort and feeling for security, and not let IT dictate the entire environment. I think when we see IT dictating the environment, it's easier to clamp it down and keep the rules on rather than allow for expansion. So Best Buy, for example, when they initially came out with their Blue Shirt Nation, this was a social network they developed internally to allow individuals and employees to exchange ideas. And when they initially went to IT just said no. And so what they did is they developed a skunk works, and they did it, and they set this up outside the IT firewall. And then once they had it set up and they had a large group of people communicating in there, then they were able to develop and expose it to the senior management, who then envelope that in underneath their organization. So sometimes it takes individuals who break rules and are going to take risks in order to push the organization and make them think about how to be more collaborative in today's new environment. It's not the same as it was before.
What's your take on it seems like it's the new build versus buy discussion in making use of these social media tools. Specifically, I mean, you're talking about Best Buy. You bring up this issue of, Best Buy decided to start their own network. As somebody who's involved in the tool space, what is your take on a brand making the choice to build their own network for their own people versus start their own sort of sub-network on an existing platform like Facebook?
Yeah, I think it just depends on how much you're looking to share. I think many organizations that are looking to collaborate quickly will pick the platform with the most individuals in them. So Target, for example, is in Facebook and has a large community there that if anything they post, they're going to get thousands of responses in there. So they're doing quite well in that environment where if they're looking to create a way for employees to communicate with each other, they might pick a Jive software right in your neighborhood out in Portland, or some of the others you talked about earlier with Andreessen's product and Ning, to build something that might be a little more private. And now we're seeing that a bit, and also in communities like healthcare. If they want cardiologists, for example, to specifically talk to each other, they'll create a private community just for them that they can monitor and control. That way, it doesn't allow for a lot of individual marketers to kind of get in there and disrupt the pure communications and exchange.
All right, then I have to ask, as closely as you work with Google, maybe you may not be able to delve too deeply on rumor mongering, but what is your take on Google Me? And is there room in this space for another monolithic social network?
Yeah, I will speak from my own opinion and not from anything I've learned from Google.
Okay.
But from my own opinion, Google has had a tough time entering the social space. You can see that the Wave product didn't get a whole lot of traction. Also, the product of Buzz had a few ripples as it launched there. And so, Google is good at a lot of things. They may not be the best at everything, but I do applaud them for keeping in the game and trying out and experimenting and see what's going to happen. The Google Me product could eventually become something where people are saying, if it has better features, it tries something new and it helps incorporate my streams. Maybe it's something I can then take on. But again, we see in Facebook when I think it was about 2 years ago, we saw a large adoption into the service once everyone had indicated, okay, everybody's there. So can Google gain that same type of traction where they can get enough people inside the system in order to attract people to adopt into it? That's yet to be seen. And I'm very curious what's going to happen, because like Google can disrupt, or they can just add value. So we'll see what they do.
I think it's the most interesting bit about it is just their the massive network that exists already. I mean, they tried. I think they tried with Buzz to leverage that network in a clever and I think what they imagined was streamlined way, and it ended up biting them, integrating Buzz with Gmail. Itself, and exposing, obviously the news was exposing, your frequent contacts, email contacts through your Buzz friends list publicly. That was maybe a miscalculation, but boy, it shows as a precursor to what they can do. I think it shows a lot of chutzpah to get it off the ground, and I wonder. I mean, given the size of Facebook, if there's space in this market right now. Of course, I think a lot of people were saying the same thing about AOL. Is there space for a competitor to AOL? And look, where are they now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the true value that maybe a Facebook can't bring that a Google could is all the integration of their other services into that social technology. So whether it be conferencing using Google Chat, video conferencing, and those kind of services, the email threading, the calendaring, the Google Apps type applications that they can layer into the social fabric. That's something another company couldn't do.
Right.
And with the millions of customers that are on Google's Gmail platform, Gmail becomes a giant beta experiment for these type of things.
Well, that's I think a great assessment, because I think given the amount of integration in the tools already, the average customer is likely to potentially forgive Google's sort of lack of polish in design and functionality in exchange for that level of integration with a world they already live in every day.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And there's something in general, I think we had talked about a couple of weeks ago, Pete, that and Megan, that when we were talking about the issues that Facebook was having with privacy, when you talk about people dropping out of the service or staying in, and there were a lot of there's a lot of speculation about whether or not some of the issues that they were dealing with their latest privacy changes or modifications, would it be the end of, or at least the beginning of the end with Facebook? And it doesn't look to be, but but I think that's still playing out. But on the other hand, Google, who there are, there's mass adoption of a lot of other parts of Google that have some sort of privacy exposure, but there's a trust level there, or a willingness to forgive, or a certain track record that kind of does allow them to keep trying. It's something about their approach. I don't know, Doug, if you have any opinion on that, but there's something about, I think, the way that they, I guess their sort of corporate social responsibility or whatever, that I think we have a different perception, even though we know there's a level of privacy exposure.
Yeah, I think right now we're seeing what we call the cloud wars, and a lot of companies are going to be pointing fingers of who's more like, the evil organization, and we're seeing just yesterday Microsoft pointing fingers at Google at their developer conference in DC, saying Google's bad, and that stigma has rested with Microsoft for a long time now. So everyone's trying to shake that big brother kind of feeling and say we're the cloud, and we're open, and we're going to allow for interoperability with this cloud service. So that seems to be the new way of communication, and way that the organizations, especially the large ones, are trying to battle each other out within the cloud systems. And as far as trying to be quick to fix, when Google came out with the buzz, they apologized and fixed it very quickly. Sorry, and they also if you look at Apple today, and with Apple's antenna issue, you can see that it took something like the Consumer Reports thing to drive them to hold a press conference. I don't think we'd be seeing that from them. They're staying kind of quiet behind the doors about this issue. So I think it's a good thing to see companies that are out there. If they make mistakes, they'll fix them quickly. They'll communicate quickly, and I think you're going to see a lot of that in the future, because that's the way that you can trust them and trust their services. So
that's a fabulous point. I think really at the time that we were really kind of going off about this in the conversation, I think our frustration, Megan and Peter, was, wow, where's Facebook? We're seeing some really horrible write-ups here from Newsweek and other publications, and we don't see a response, or when we see a response, it's a really muted, limited response, or it doesn't really address things, or they've done a few things since then, but there was a time period that in terms of the way I think the news cycle works, or let's not call it that, maybe it's the consumer expectation cycle, I guess, which is I think today a lot faster, a lot speedier, I guess, of a cycle than it ever has been, and continues to be. That expectation that you're talking about, Doug. Google's responding and Apple responding. Well, Apple took a while to respond to other publications, but now Consumer Reports, and there's a response. That's the interesting thing that I think you're just really hitting it on the head, and I think it's fascinating, and I think your perspective on it is interesting to say. If we're talking about trust, it's not that we're talking about you never make a mistake, or privacy is never exposed, or you don't have failed products, or things don't go wrong. It's that response, and I think that, and Doug, I've heard you make this point in a lot of different ways over the last couple of years, that's part of this entire evolution is companies listening and interacting with consumers, and when we talk about a cultural change.
Where did he go? And Dane is gone. Dane?
I'm here.
Oh, there you go.
I'm here.
All right, so pick it
I'm
up.
right here.
I lost you. You were talking about cultural change.
Dane, did you just come from another world? You stopped and then you were like, "What's the deal?"
Yeah, I know. Like we're the ones who are weird.
Yeah.
No, seriously. What the hell happened?
What's that
Honestly.
show? It's like
I was making the most brilliant point ever.
It was.
As usual, when you were on mute.
I was not on mute. Wow, that sucks,
All right,
guys.
cultural change. You were talking about cultural change.
I don't know. Where'd you lose me? Good
So-
Lord.
This is like Memento. Look at your hand, and then backwards. So
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Well-
I probably did time warp there.
All right, so I'll tell you what I was thinking about when you were making
ahead.
your little rant.
You do it.
Is this idea that just because the technology exists that allows companies to respond quickly and to see pain points in their constituent audiences does not necessarily mean that they have the same willingness to respond quickly to the pain points in their constituent audiences, right? You have Facebook and Apple that are notoriously silent and strategically so, silent in these discussions, and you have Google, which responds so quickly and enables every single engineer to have that same level of ability to respond to the market when things happen. And I think that's really an illustrative point of what's going on in the market for being able to communicate as marketers with your publics.
yeah, I also think this is part of something that I captured in the Wall Street Journal a while back, and it's called the virtuous cycle. And it talks about companies that can be malleable, can have the growth mindset of seeing life as a journey, embracing uncertainty, seeking new experience, and broadening their repertoire. Those are the kind of companies that'll place small bets quickly. And if they'll manage risk through action and not analysis, essentially. So they will succeed more often in new situations because failing is part of their DNA. And they'll know that they are going to be failing, but they're going to do it quickly. And people like that because they feel like, that's like me. I want to know people that fail but tell me, but then keep moving on.
Yeah, that's a great point. I heard I had a friend who did some contract work at Google, and he said, we talk a lot about companies that try to that just throw spaghetti up on the wall and see how much of it sticks. And he said, given that, when you walk into Google, the place is just, metaphorically disgusting. You could just see the trail of spaghetti on every wall in the place. So I thought that's an interesting metaphor.
Yeah, and that probably comes from their 20% rule, where they're always working on something that doesn't have, a project assigned to it or even a manager. They can just kind of free form and see what's working. And that's in that free environment where the mind can think. That's where things like Gmail were born. So more organizations, I think, should look at adopting what Google calls the Google Hive mind, where it can move and be malleable to different environments, and it can move from one part of the hive to another depending on the scope of the work or the newness of it or even the popularity. So that's very hard for big companies to do, and I give them hats off that they can do it at scale.
Well, we sure appreciate your insights today, Doug. You are such a great way. Your perspective gives us a great way to look at some of these, marketing concepts in a whole new way. So we sure appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and share your wisdom.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Doug. Thank you very much. Fascinating.
Where should people be interested in learning more about you and following more of your internet genius? Where would you like them to find you?
So I keep a blog of ideas out there, kind of a collection more or less, at Pollei.com, at Pollei.com. But they can also follow our company at IKANO.com. And we're also sponsoring Jason Calacanis' show, This Week in Startups, as well as This Week in Cloud Computing. So follow some of their stuff, what we're sponsoring down there, as well as sponsoring Leo Laporte's show, This Week in Tech. So those are all great ways that you can stay on top of new technology. And we like to be part of those individuals and those crowds because it's the ideas of where things are flowing. So we're just, stay in touch.
Well, fantastic properties. You're sponsoring shows. I'm a huge personal fan of all those shows. They're terrific, as you say, ways to stay on top of this stuff. So, and what about now? You're pretty active on the Twitter. You don't want to plug your own Twitter?
Yeah, it's all on the website.
All
so
right.
I kind of linked everything there. But just Doug Pollei, DougPollei is the Twitter handle, and for the most part, I like talking about new technologies, things that are happening at Fortune 500s here in the Twin Cities. So like Targets, the Best Buys, and the General Mills, as well as cloud services. So I'm a bit all over the place when it comes to. I don't have a specific focus, but when I find things that are interesting, I'll put them out there. And I, like Dan had mentioned, I do like to go to trade shows. I sometimes feel like a nerd junkie of trade shows, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but I do like to go there because I get to soak in a lot of the ideas that are permeating out there, and that's where a lot of the new stuff is born.
Well, mostly it allows us to take another opportunity to make Dane feel bad about not tweeting more.
Oh, stop.
Anyway, Doug, thank you again for your time, and we hope you'll come back as wonderful, new, interesting things hit the world of the cloud.
Yeah, let's join up again another year and talk about mobile or some other stuff.
Let's do it. We'd love to. Thanks,
I appreciate
Doug.
it so much, Doug.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
What a great interview, you guys. I found that very interesting.
Very interesting. And Pete, you and I had talked the other day about the value in terms of this podcast that the people we've been able to bring on brings. I listening to Doug talk, just thought once again, and we've had several shows like this, that I want to just, I don't know that I want to be doing the interviewing so much as just be the podcast audience and listen to this fascinating person and what he has to say. So it was great. I'm glad we were able to get him on.
Yeah,
Definitely get him on again.
Absolutely. I think he's got a lot of that insight into just the connectivity between how companies are using their platforms to actually build audiences is really fascinating. So lots more to talk about with Doug Pollei.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about tools, shall we? Do we have a tool? I have a tool.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But I want to see if you have any tools. Do you have any tools, people?
Well, you and I had the same tool, except I wasn't calling it a tool. So go ahead.
Well, let's talk about the tool. The tool is Evernote, and we've talked about Evernote a whole bunch on the show, and I'm actually much chagrined that our friend Andrew Sinkoff is not available right now to come on and talk to us about this. They launched a significant update to Evernote this week. Apart from the usual kind of bug fixes and tweaks, there's a major new feature called Evernote Trunk. Trunk, as much as I understand it, is an app store for Evernote, which at first seems like, well, what use would an app store be for Evernote? It's a note tool. It syncs to their service in the cloud. You can tag stuff. That's great. But as soon as you open this new version of Evernote and you hit the trunk button, you can see why it is actually of note. There are some fantastically creative and clever companies that are working on ways to integrate with Evernote. Most importantly, ways to take third-party services information and one-click save data, web data, notes, texts, photos from other services into your Evernote everything drawer, the everything bucket that is Evernote. And it is really fascinating. It's so new that I literally have not actually installed any new apps yet. I just launched it this morning and have kind of been reading up on it, but it looks like from just an initial scan, there are some really great partners, from PDF readers to Seismic Desktop. If you're a Seismic user, you save your tweets and social dashboard information directly into Evernote. SAP, to-do list managers like Egret List, Voice to Note by Dial To Do, so you can make turn all of your Evernote voice notes into searchable, taggable text. iFi, the iFi manufacturers of great compact flashcards for for digital cameras that will allow you to use Wi-Fi, take photos on your camera, and automatically send them via Wi-Fi up to your Evernote account without using a computer. Just some really interesting things.
Well, that's a comprehensive list. I hope you please do share, Pete, as you experience those. What rises to the top in your experience?
Are you trying to move me on? Is that what you're doing? It sounds like you're trying to move me on.
You're saying I'm pulling a Megan?
I think you're pulling a Megan. What are you doing? I want to know if you have tried any of these things. Have you seen them?
I have seen that they did it, and I think it's very cool. I haven't tried them yet. And don't they also provide templates from specific vendors? Isn't that part of the beauty of what they're doing on this trunk?
Yeah, I think it is. And I haven't explored these I haven't explored them at great detail, but it looks like some of them are templates, some of them are custom notebooks, and another feature is now you can actually subscribe to published binders,
which is cool.
Which is really cool. So Make Magazine or Make.com has a projects binder that they publish. Cool Hunting is a terrific feed of great great projects and cultural iconry. Lots of resources that you can subscribe to as binders that get automatically updated. What would be really cool is if I could figure out how we could publish, and I say royal we, like how the users could publish their own binders and offer them like Evernote is doing. How could I create my own Naked Marketers binder that people could subscribe to as a read-only binder? Don't yet know how to do that, but that's one of those questions that I feel like it seems like the next thing that we should be able to do is use Evernote as a publishing tool.
Yeah,
drive our feed into it. So anyhow, really terrific tool, a terrific upgrade from to Evernote, and look forward to lots of great things from them down the road. Make sure.
And if any of our fabulous listeners have used the new trunk applications, let us know.
Absolutely, let us know, and that is Evernote.com. And that's all we have for tools. And let's see, do we have anything else to talk about, people?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. Dane, anything else to talk about?
Just my voice changed.
It did. I did. Your internet goes down. You're back on the cell phone. This is it's going to be a really schizophrenic show.
Yeah, exactly.
So this has been another Naked Marketers on behalf of no, not yet. Megan Strand. If people want to find you, where do they go?
I'm always on the Twitter at Megan Strand, or my website and blog, encouraged.com, which is INCOURAGED.
Fantastic. And Dane Christensen, where do people find you?
I just really hope they go to strike10media.com.
Beautiful. And I'm Pete Wright, at Pete Wright on the Twitter, or fifthandmain.com is the website. You can learn more about this very show at thenakedmarketers.com or at Naked Markets on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to the show in iTunes. That's the best way to get a hold of us, and make sure you don't miss a single episode of marketing goodness. On behalf of Megan and Dane, my name is Pete. Thank you so much for downloading and listening once again, and we will catch up with you next week on The Naked Marketers.